Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We did a story just the other day about Lorna Slater and her hiring of a chartered boat to take her across to the Isle of Rum. She could have got the ferry for £4.70 with everyone else, but of course she's far too good and far too grand to mix it with the hoi polloi and us peasants. So off she goes and hires a boat at the public expense. And I did do the thing and phoned them up and found out that the minimum they charge for that would be £500. I'm presuming Lorna will be paying that fee out of her own pocket. Wouldn't expect the public to pay it, would you, Lorna? But of course, it goes and flies in face of everything she stands for. Oh, everyone must use public transport because it's better for the environment, blah, blah, blah. All that usual BS that these people come out with. Well, she's rather been caught at it again. She wanted to go and see some trees being planted, presumably because she doesn't know what that looks like. And so rather than taking the train or the bus or any other form of public transport that she insists that we take, no, she gets a chauffeur-driven limousine to go and see a tree go into the ground. The hypocrisy is strong with this woman, and it totally undermines everything she stands for. But then you don't expect anything less from these utterly bonkers people. Let's look at this report and see what the hell she's going on, and to see why does she think she's ever going to get away with this level of crap. Anyway, here goes. So, Limo Lorna blasted for a 350-mile chauffeur-driven journey to see some trees being planted. Scottish Greens Minister Lorna Slater's extravagant use of a chauffeur-driven ministerial car service has come under fire following the furore over a private catamaran to the Isle of Rum. And of course, she constantly goes on about how important it is to save the world, save the environment. All us plebs need to use public transport. We shouldn't have cars. They want to ban it. But it's okay for her to go along in her chauffeur-driven limousine. Presumably, again, because she doesn't like mixing it with us ordinary folk. She's far too good for that. So Lorna Slater has used a chauffeur-driven ministerial car for no fewer than 50 journeys in the past year, despite urging Scots to use public transport and cut their use of private vehicles. The Scottish Green Minister's longest trip was a 350-mile return journey from her home near Edinburgh to a tree planting project and rewilding centre near Loch Ness. I happen to know that Loch Ness is right next to Inverness, which has an excellent train station, and you can get a train from Edinburgh to Inverness, and it's only a matter of a couple of hours. It's not it's not the longest journey in the world, but it's not good enough for her because it would mean that she would have to travel like ordinary people, and she's far too good for that, isn't she? Other luxury limo journeys included journeys in and around Aberdeen and Edinburgh, which could have easily been undertaken on a train, a bus or a tram, or a bike. The Scottish Government's transport strategy aims to cut car travel by a fifth. Yeah, not their travel though, only ours. And Miss Slater's use of the taxpayer-funded government car service saw her described as the Queen of Hypocrisy. Her travel diary revealed by the Mail on Sunday, 2 days after she caused a storm of protest by chartering a private catamaran for a day trip to the Isle of Rum. And as I say, you can see that video. At the beginning of that, I actually showed where I'd made the phone call to the charter company. I asked them the price because the Scottish Government refused to say how much it cost. But the charter company said depending on when you go and how many there are, but prices started at about £500. So you know it's going to be at least £500, possibly more. We need to know how much she is spending. But we also need to know why she felt it was necessary to do that rather than do the ferry like ordinary people have to do. She claimed it was because the ferry didn't run at the right time. Well, whose fault's that, Lorna? It's your government. You are in government. It's your fault, Scottish Conservative transport spokesman Graham Simpson said, Lorna Slater hires a boat rather than take a ferry and uses government limos rather than take public transport, or even, perish the thought, get somewhere under her own steam. Miss Slater talks the talk, but rather than walk the walk, she'd rather be chauffeur-driven. She is the green queen of hypocrisy, and Scotland is seeing through her double standards. And she is absolutely awful to keep doing this, and not just to do it once, but to do it several times now. and to be caught at it, and then keep having to come up with excuses. And we don't know what the excuse for this will be, but it'll presumably be that the trains didn't run at the right time, or there was the wrong kind of people on the train, that kind of thing, because you know that's where it is. And I bet if she did get the train, public transport, it would be first class compartment the whole way, and we, the public, would be expected to pay for that, because these tossers are just full of it. We should make it a rule that if they want to travel, they have to look at public transport first and save the cars for exceptional reasons. And then when they have to start using public transport, they may start investing in public transport because they'll see how awful it is. Miss Slater, 47, who is the Minister for Green Skills, Circular Economy and Biodiversity, not a real job then, visited the Dundregan Rewilding Centre near Loch Ness last October. Once at the centre, which will grow trees for planting on the hills across the Highlands, she held the project as an exemplar of long-term nature restoration. But not as though that good, because obviously you've been choking the air with your big car, fumes coming out the back end because you're incapable of taking a train. On another trip, taxpayers paid for her return rail ticket from Edinburgh to Aberdeen. She was picked up at the station by a government limo and ferried around several venues in the city. At the end of her visit, she decided not to use her return rail ticket and was instead driven back to Edinburgh in the back of the ministerial car, because obviously having experienced the absolute horror of getting from Edinburgh to Aberdeen with all those other people, she decided, no, that's not for me. I would like to sit in my nice luxuriant car and be chauffeur driven because I'm royalty or something. In another flurry of car journeys, the Green politician was driven on 10 trips in the space of 9 days last year, travelling almost 600 miles across Scotland, visiting Argyll, Dumfriesshire, Edinburgh and Perthshire in the process. Meanwhile, in February this year, Miss Slater was driven a few miles from her home to a recycling centre in Musselburgh in East Lothian. In all, Scottish government data shows Miss Slater took the car 50 car trips last year within the 12 months. And this is the woman that's trying to get us out of cars, because cars are bad and yet can't help but use chauffeur-driven limousines to travel a few miles. What an absolute two-faced, hypocritical, snide, arrogant, cynical snob. I mean, she does not like mixing with ordinary people because she thinks she's way, way above us. Well, I've got news for you, Lorna. You're not. And you're caught out. And we know exactly what you are now. And it's about time you were voted out of office. But I think that'll be very soon. Anyway, I shall round off and come up. Before we get back into this, I will just say that if you do find yourself in Inverness, go to the train station. Don't need to get a train. Just go to the train station. As you look at the train station on the right-hand side, you will see the station hotel. Wander in, go to the bar and order a martini. I've been around, and let me tell you, the best martini I have ever tasted was one I had in the bar at the Inverness Station Hotel. It was excellent. And if you don't like martinis, don't bother. But there's a little pub on the other side of the river, and it has something like 300 whiskies behind the bar. I didn't get all the way through them, but God, we made a good hole in that one. I love Inverness. Anyway, why is Lorna Slater always doing things like this? Why is she always refusing to use public transport? Is it that public transport is so bad in Scotland? Or is it that she just doesn't like ordinary people and mixing with them and wants to be treated as some kind of royalty, better than everyone else? The hypocrisy is now evident. She is just an awful woman, and she'll sit there. And how can she in future? How can she sit there in Parliament and go on and talk about having to do good things for the environment and how they need to drive people out of their cars and get people onto public transport? How can she sit there and say things like that, having done what she's done? I mean, she has completely ruined any argument she has now, and I'm sure that the Scottish Labour, Scottish Tories, Scottish Lib Dems will, of course, castigate her terribly for this. She can never ever talk on green issues again. Can never talk about public transport. Can never talk about private car ownership, because it would be the ultimate hypocrisy. they would tear her a new corn shoot, and it couldn't happen to a nicer woman. And I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, please leave a comment, and share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, always take the bus, and goodbye.